Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Steve Donoghue Top 10 Movie BroTube Challenge. Now, if you haven't been following this series, we're on episode 3 now. If you missed the last one, I'll link it down in the descriptions below. I'll put my video and I'll put Steve Donoghue's video. Please check them out. But at the end of the second Top 10 Challenge, Steve reached back out and he says, hey, let's do a third one. And I said, sure, that sounds great, but you pick the topic this time. And Steve picked war movies, the top 10 war movies of all time. My initial reaction was, it's a trap. But never let it be said that Grammaticus Books shied away from a challenge. So here we go with our top 10. But just by the way, this is open to any booktuber out there. If there's any booktuber out there and you want to make your own top 10 war movie list for the Steve Donoghue BroTube Challenge, please feel free. And also, I'd love to hear your comments down in the comments section below about what your favorite war movies are of all time. Well, let's start with number 10. It's a foreign film. It's a Russian film. I have 2 foreign films on my list. This one is White Tiger by Mosfilm. Came out in 2012. Now, the 2 Russian movies that get the most press, that get the most attention, are Stalingrad and T-34. For my money, this movie, White Tiger, beats both of them hands down. It's based on the book by Ilya Boyashev called Tankist, which roughly translates to tank crew member. And it is about a possessed German Tiger tank that is painted all white camouflage, even in summertime, that keeps appearing in the rear of the Soviet armored columns during the Soviet counteroffensives and just laying waste to them and disrupting them and just laying down devastation and destruction on these Soviet columns. And the Soviet high command becomes so perturbed by these attacks by this lone white tiger that they put together a elite tank crew in a brand new T-34-85, this prototype T-34 tank with up-armored guns, up-armored armor, and a larger, better engine in order to seek out and destroy the white tiger. That's its sole mission. But the driver of this T-34 is a survivor of a white tiger attack. He was burned over 90% of his body. They thought he was going to die. He has this miraculous comeback recovery. And when he recovers, he can now talk to the tanks. He can literally talk with his tanks. He's the tank whisperer. His commanders all think he's crazy, but he's the best driver that they have. And he's the only person left alive who has seen the white tiger and knows its tactics. So they reluctantly put him into the driver's seat of this new prototype and send this crew out in order to engage the white tiger. And it becomes this occult war movie that is really wonderful. It's fantastically done. There's a ton of authentic vintage Soviet steel up on the screen that is a wonder to look at. If you're a World War II buff, you're gonna love all the Soviet tanks that are up there on the screen that are not CGI, they're actual real tanks. And even as improbable as the plot is, the characters are so good, the acting is so good, the plot, the script, and the directing is so good that it sucks you into that story and it makes it believable. And it has just a wonderful end that I won't spoil. But for all those reasons, this one comes in at number 10, White Tiger, based off the book by Ilya Boyashev. And also, there's more good news about this. You can actually watch this complete movie on YouTube, and I'm going to link the complete movie down below in the description. Please go check it out. It is in Russian with subtitles, but don't let that deter you. So that's number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Number 9 is Zulu from 1964, the epic British movie. I don't count that as a foreign film. It's in English, so it's not foreign. Starring Michael Caine. It's Michael Caine's first major leading role as an actor from this 1964 epic about the British Army in South Africa and the Zulu territories when the Zulu nation rises up and there's the Zulu revolt. And almost 2,000 British soldiers are killed at the Battle of Slandawanda. I hope I said that correct. And then 4,000 more Zulu warriors descend upon Rorke's Rift, which is a small fort in the Zulu nation, and they want to wipe it out. It's garrisoned by 200 British soldiers. This is a true story, and it's the story of the Battle of Rorke's Rift with Michael Caine as one of the officers in charge of the fort. And it's epic. It's shot on location. It has actual Zulu Nation warriors that are cast as the Zulus in the movie. It's just a wonderful, wonderful film. And for that reason, it is up here at number 9 on the list, Zulu with Michael Caine. Number 8 is Kelly's Heroes. This is another wonderful film. These are all wonderful films, but I really like Kelly's Heroes. It's a war movie and it's an anti-war movie all rolled into one. 1970. It's based on a book called Nazi Gold. It is loosely based on a real story about a rogue unit of American tankers who drive ahead of the American army during the Italian Peninsula campaign to this small Italian town that they learn is filled with Nazi gold. And they get there and they find out that the town is garrisoned by a squad of Tiger tanks. Again, we have Tiger tanks. And it's just a great movie about them trying to get the gold and having to deal with these Tiger tanks in this Italian town. And it's a war movie, it's a drama, it's a comedy. It stars Clint Eastwood, Telly Savalas, Don Rickles, Donald Sutherland, Carol O'Connor, and Donald Sutherland has his classic role as Oddball, the tank commander, the hippie tank commander. It's a wonderful movie, and it has this wonderful moment at the very end of the movie where the Kelly's Heroes confront the last Tiger tank in the town. That's one of the greatest war scene movies of all time, although it's not really a war scene movie, but it's a fantastic moment in this war movie. And for that reason, it comes in at number 8. Number 7 is They Were Expendable, 1945, starring Robert Montgomery and John Wayne. Had to have a John Wayne movie on here. How can you have a top 10 war movie list of all time and not have a John Wayne movie on it? It would absolutely be a party foul. Sands of Iwo Jima usually gets mentioned as John Wayne's best war movie. For my money, They Were Expendable in 1945 is better than The Sands of Iwo Jima. And one of the reasons it's better is because John Wayne isn't the leading actor in this movie. Robert Montgomery is. John Wayne is the lead supporting actor. And because of that, it kind of tones down that Duke personality that he develops later. And you get more of the real John Wayne and more of a sort of a human role instead of this over-the-top flag-waving patriotism of the Duke and the other war movies. And so I like it a lot better for that reason. I also like it because it's got authentic PT boats that the Navy gave them for this movie. It's about the early days of the war in the Pacific, where a motor patrol boat squadron, torpedo boat squadron number 3, is defending the Philippine Islands during the initial advances by the Japanese, and they're losing the Philippines. And this patrol boat squadron has to sacrifice their men and their patrol boats in order to try to slow down the advance, to get as many Americans out as they can so the Americans can come back and MacArthur can have his triumphant return. But it's a wonderful movie. It's very somber. It's very serious. And it's a great film. It's a great war film from 1945. And for that reason, it comes in at number 7. So that gets us to almost halfway through the list. It gets us to number 6. This is another foreign film. It's a Japanese film from 2013 that's called The Eternal Zero. Now, this was directed by Takashi Yamazaki, which I just learned when I was researching this. I saw this movie years ago. Very difficult to get a copy of it, but it's a fantastic film. It was a top-grossing film in Japan in 2013. It brought in $30 million in the U.S., and it's by Takashi Yamazaki, the same director that just released Godzilla -1 in the theaters just this year, which is one of my favorite movies. It's in my BroTube Challenge number 2 that I linked down below. And watching Godzilla -1, I saw a ton of Eternal Zero in it. I could see the parallels, but at that time I didn't realize it was the same director, and now it makes sense. And the Eternal Zero is about a kamikaze pilot. He starts off as a naval aviator in the early days of the war, and then later he becomes a kamikaze trainer. And during the war, he quickly realizes that Japan is going to lose, that there's just this tide, this avalanche of American steel, this tsunami that is just rolling over the Japanese military and crushing them. And he realizes that Japan is going to lose the war, and he starts trying to do everything he can to save as many of his men as he can so that they're there for rebuilding post-war Japan. Very similar to Godzilla -1. But he, in a fate of irony, he gets appointed to be the commander or an instructor at a kamikaze school where he has to teach these same men that he's trying to save to go out and be kamikaze pilots. And it is just a wonderful, wonderful film. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to find a copy of this to view it. I wish I could tell you a good option for it. If you could even get a copy from your library, it's a foreign DVD, and it won't play in an American DVD player unless you have special programming in it. But it's an excellent film. I love this film a lot, and for that reason, it comes in at number 6. Drive on and do 5 through 1, starting with number 5. Number 5 is They Shall Not Grow Old by Peter Jackson. Now, this is a documentary. It's about World War I. And in mid-2015, right around that time, 2015, 2016, the Royal Military Museum reaches out to Peter Jackson and says they have thousands upon thousands of feet of original World War I film footage, and it's decaying and it's slowly being destroyed. And they want Peter Jackson to come in and to take access of it, take control of it, and use it in any way he wants on the condition that he creates a movie that can be shown in a movie theater out of this film and to restore it as best he can. And Peter Jackson succeeds beyond anybody's wildest imagination. It's a triumph of documentary filmmaking where he takes these silent, black and white, very choppy World War I film footage and he restores it to where it looks like it's something that just came out today. They have lip readers who read the lips on these people who are on the film, these soldiers, and they then look at their unit patches, see what part of England that they're from, and they get actors from that same part, from those same parts of England to match their accents, who then add in voiceovers for what they're saying, what these soldiers are saying. They put in sound effects, they colorize it perfectly. Peter Jackson is a World War I freak. He has hundreds and hundreds of original World War I uniforms. He has World War I cannons on his estate, and they would pull the actual uniforms that were displayed in the movie. They would get Peter Jackson so they could see the exact hues of colors, and they restore it perfectly, and they bring World War I to life in a way that you just won't believe unless you see it. I'm going to put a link to the trailer for this movie down in the description below. I really encourage you to go and check it out. You can certainly get this from your library. It's probably streaming somewhere as well. And it is just a fantastic accomplishment by Peter Jackson. For me personally, I would put it up there with Lord of the Rings, although I don't think a lot of other people would. But I love this war movie a lot, this documentary. And for that reason, it comes in at number 5. Number 4 is back to our sweeping epic war movies, and it is the 1970 movie Patton, starring George C. Scott, where he just absolutely channels Patton to the point where he's more Patton than Patton. This was a film that won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. I mean, it's a monumental war film. It was filmed primarily on location all across Europe and in North Africa. I think they did it in North Africa. And it's just epic in scope, epic in scale. The script was written by Francis Ford Coppola. It's a magnificent movie, and for that reason, it's here at number 4. So number 3, we're down to the top 3. This is a personal favorite of mine. It is Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down. So we're coming forward into modern times. It's 1993, and it's Mogadishu, where the U.S. Army is going out to try to capture several of the lieutenants of the warlord Mohammed Farah Aidid inside Mogadishu in Somalia, and the raid just goes horribly wrong. It's a raid in strength using the Rangers, Delta Force, and Black Hawk helicopters to execute the raid. And things go from bad to worse to worse. But it's a testament to the courage of the men who are out there trapped in a city where the entire city is trying to kill them. And this movie was done with the support of the United States Army, who gave them squads of they had a company's worth actually of Army Rangers to fill out the roles and make it look real. And they gave them actually a whole squadron worth of Black Hawks and light observable scout helicopters to use in the movie as well. And Ridley Scott's talent for making a realistic film with all of this material, all of this metamaterial from the U.S. Army, turned this into one of the most realistic modern war films that's ever been put onto the cinema and up on the screen. It stars Ewan McGregor, Eric Bana, Tom Sizemore before he burned out his brain on cocaine, Tom Hardy in his first roles in it, and a very young Orlando Bloom, and it won 2 Academy Awards. It's a great action film, a great modern action film. It's the best modern action film in my opinion. And it is based off of the book, right here, give me a second, by Mark Bowden, Black Hawk Down. I will say this about the movie. the movie whitewashes what happened in Mogadishu quite a bit. If you read the book by Mark Bowden, things were much, much, much worse than they're portrayed in the movie. If you have not read the book, I highly recommend this book. It's excellent. But that's number 3, Ridley Scott, Black Hawk Down, with the gritty, realistic modern war movie. So what is number 2? Number 2 is back to another epic of war cinema, and it is the 1962 film Lawrence of Arabia, starring Peter O'Toole, based upon Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence's autobiography, The Seven Pillars of Wisdom, which is an absolute classic of literature. This is a fantastic movie. It also won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It's grand, it's epic in scope. If you ever get the chance to see it on the big screen, jump at it. That's where it was meant to be seen. So you can see these vast desert scenes that they were filming, because that's how it was intended to be seen by the directors. I had a chance to see this about 5 years ago in a movie theater, and it was great. The local theater had a classic movie night on like Wednesdays, and they showed this. If they do something similar in your town, jump all over it. You won't regret it. Peter O'Toole, Alec Guinness, Omar Sharif, at the height of their game, and just a wonderfully directed film about the Arab uprising during World War I. So another World War I film. But it's wonderful, and for that reason, it's on my list at number 2. Which takes us to number 1. What could be number 1? Well, number 1 is also a Ridley Scott film. I got Ridley Scott at number 1. It is about the Napoleonic Wars. And no, it is not that piece of crap that he just released, Napoleon. This is actually the first film that was ever shot by Ridley Scott, 1977, and it's called The Duelists. And it's set in the Napoleonic era. It's the Napoleonic Wars. And you have 2 cavalry officers who at the start of the Napoleonic Wars get into a feud, and the feud continues across the length of the Napoleonic Wars. And the antagonist is played by Harvey Keitel, and the protagonist is played by Keith Carradine. And I don't normally like Keith Carradine that well as an actor, but he's perfectly cast in this role, and he does just a wonderful job with it. And Harvey Keitel is Harvey Keitel. But they have this feud, and it resolves in they both get arrested and then released for the wars. But in Napoleon's army, you were not allowed to duel with another officer unless you were of equal rank. And Keith Carradine's actor, his character keeps getting promoted ahead of Harvey Keitel as the wars are raging. And whenever Harvey Keitel gets promoted, pardon me 1 minute while I get a drink. There we go. And when Harvey Keitel's character gets promoted, wherever they are, when whatever battle they're in, he goes and he seeks out Keith Carradine and challenges him to another duel. And they fight these series of duels over the course of the Napoleonic Wars. And it's based partly upon a true story. How much of it is true and how much of it isn't, we don't really know. It was a very short clip in a newspaper from back in the Napoleonic times about these 2 cavalry officers that got turned into a story, a very short story, and then turned into this film. And Ridley Scott shot this on a very minimalist budget. I think they had 1 professional camera, they had 1 professional light, and they had about 50 extras. And Ridley Scott, in his directorial brilliance, makes it look like entire armies are on the move. He makes it look like they're all over the continent of Europe when they shot the entire film almost entirely in this one valley in France. The attention to detail in the uniforms is spectacular. It has some of the best dueling scenes that you will ever see up on film, and it established Ridley Scott's reputation as a solid director in Hollywood. And it's the film that actually got him the attention of the producers that then brought him over in order to film Alien, which is another movie that was on one of my Steve Donoghue BroTube challenges. But that's my number 1. I love this movie. I watch it every couple of years. It's absolutely wonderful. And that is The Duelists by Ridley Scott, 1977. So that's my top 10 list. Now I'm going to have to address the elephants in the room. There are 2 movies that are not on this list that everybody is out there saying, Grammaticus, how can you not put these 2 movies on your list? And I'm going to explain why they're not here. And the first one is Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan has one of the greatest opening scenes in war movie cinema history with the invasion of D-Day at Omaha Beach or Utah Beach, one of those beaches. It is spectacular. But however, in my opinion, After that D-Day scene, Saving Private Ryan descends into just a string of Hollywood war tropes, and I find it almost unwatchable. I can't watch it. A far, far better war movie, World War II, European theater war movie is Band of Brothers. So why isn't Band of Brothers on my list? It's not on my list because it's not a movie, it's a miniseries. Otherwise, it would be right up here. It would be in my top 3 easy. It's far, far better than Saving Private Ryan. And for that reason, Saving Private Ryan is not on my list. The other big war movie that gets a lot of attention, that gets a lot of mention in top war movie lists, is The Paths of Glory. It's a black and white film starring Kirk Douglas. It's an anti-war film about an incident that happened again in World War I with the French army, where there was basically a revolt by the troops. And Kirk Douglas does a spectacular job in this movie. I just recently watched it to see if it lived up to the hype, so to speak. And Kirk Douglas does a great job. The direction is fantastic. The script is really good, but the film has problems. It's shot all with American actors. I think there's some British actors that play the role of the high commanding French generals, but all of the enlisted people, all of these French soldiers are played by American actors with really strong American accents, like Brooklyn accents, New York accents, Southern Kentucky accents, and it is just jarring every time they open their mouths. In addition to that, even though you've got a fantastic performances turned in by Kirk Douglas, the performances that get turned in by these actors who are playing the parts of the enlisted men are pretty atrocious in parts, and the movie really breaks down. I had a hard time seeing it as one of the top war movies. It had all the elements for a top war movie, and I think it gets a lot of benefit of the doubt because it is such a strong anti-war message that comes across in the movie, and it is shot brilliantly. The cinematography is fantastic, but it just has too many problems, in my opinion, in order to make it onto a top 10 list. So I needed to address those 2 elephants in the room. But that's it. That's my top 10 list. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Put your comments down in the comments section. Let me know what your top war movies are. And other than that, this is Grammaticus saying take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.